So good morning, welcome, and I'm grateful to share this next 2 hours with you all. My name is Alexandra, for those who don't know me, and I've been really diving down the wonderful rabbit hole of pranayama for many years, and I'm just happy to be able to share this science with you all. For those who are a bit newer to the practice or to yoga in general, pranayama is found within the sort of tree of yoga as the fourth limb. So it follows our regulative principles, our moral guiding guidelines, and it follows the asana practice. So once we've sort of created these nice structures for ourselves in life, created a nice open container of this sacred vessel of the body, then we're invited and even more able to move into subtler energies and perceiving the subtle energies that work in the universe, work in nature, and are often not so perceivable by the gross senses, but we can definitely feel them at play and at work as we dive deeper into subtle practices and tools. So prana is the energy of life. It's the force of life that permeates our food, our air, our water supply, the sunlight, the moonlight. It permeates our relationships and the quality of our exchanges. So it's just this energy force. You can see it as well. It's sort of another label to it. And in the breath, it is sort of at its most potent and pure, and we can work with it through these breath techniques to sort of extract the most life out of the breath and infuse it into the body and move any subtle or gross blockages in the body and in the 72,000 subtle energy channels that circulate through our entire system. So today's practice, I wanted us to dive into specific practices to enhance our intuitive resonance, to enhance the glandular system's ability to balance and create a sort of overall harmony in the brain and in the rest of the body so that our intuition is heightened. And intuition is this the spiritual warrior's greatest tool, the yogi's greatest tool along the path. It is sort of our bridge to perceiving the voice of both the soul and the super soul. So the yogic texts describe that within the heart there are two birds, and you might be hearing all these beautiful birds chirping around me. And these two birds are described as the individual perception, or atma, or the self, the soul that is completely unique to you, and there's only one of it in all of creation. And right next to that is another bird known as the super soul, or paramatma. So atma and paramatma, that which is sort of omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, living in all beings equally at the same time, guiding our wanderings, or perhaps not guiding our wanderings, right? If our connection, if that bridge to communicate with the super soul isn't quite created, or maybe it's a wobbly bridge, or we haven't really established that connection, then we're just sort of going about our business and treating life at a very maybe superficial level, maybe from a very fearful level. So when we get into these practices, that line of communication is opened, and we're able to perceive a more subtle resonance, a more subtle guidance, perhaps one that defies logic, perhaps one that defies the social and status quo. So intuition is sort of one of these things that's a little difficult to quantify, but once we dive into these practices and sort of cleanse and refine our perception, it becomes a more dominant presence in our lives. And I found this wonderful sort of guideline to determining and discriminating between ego and intuition. And I wanted to share that before we dive in. So, ego is logical and intuition is creative. So, the ego tends to want to control and create structure so that there's some measure of certainty, because at its essence, these spiritual energies, divinity, the universe is quite mysterious. There's not necessarily a rational order to it. It's beyond our logical perception. And behind that is this force of creativity, which is energized by love. Love tends to bring a sort of spontaneity, an unpredictability that excites and brings wonder to the mind. And for some of us, that is perceived as unsafe or a bit too much to handle. And so we're not able to necessarily let our guard down and trust and have faith in that spontaneous loving flow. So the ego wants to create a logical system where things are trackable, they're a little more reliable in their outcome. But oftentimes what that does is create a dependency on a past, on something that maybe worked in the past. And so we have to do it again. And that sort of creates a limitation of what is ever present in this moment here and now, which isn't, when we really get down into it, the moment isn't based on a past or even necessarily a future. It simply is here and now. So that creative voice might seem like something that kind of comes out of left field. We don't know really where, but something in us is saying, "Don't try that." There's what one of my teachers calls pings. So we get a little ping like, "Oh, what about that person? Maybe I should reach out to them," or "What about that solution?" So allowing ourselves to follow a subtle and creative flow is more in line with our intuitive nature. Ego is fear-based. Intuition is based on love. So fear is often, again, attached to that desire to be able to calculate and create a transactional experience in life. And so sometimes that comes across as having to do something because that's sort of the way society has dictated that is the right path, or our parents who maybe have all the best intentions, but are also moving from a place of just wanting to have a definite outcome. And if we really look at it, there is no definite outcome, maybe death and taxes, right? So with those two knowings that, okay, death is for certain, knowing that sort of starts to, maybe for some of us, incite more fear, but for others, free us up, because we know that that's coming. So what am I going to do with what I do have, with our most precious resources of time and my life energy? So intuitive voice sort of is rooted in love, and it reminds us that actually I have the support of divinity or the universe, and I don't need to be fearful, that if I really lean into it, I always have that support. And that support is actually desiring the best and highest outcome for my evolution. And that is based in love. And so if something looks like It's not actually in my best interest if I'm losing money, if there's an accident or some misfortune has come upon me. This sort of intuitive voice encourages us to reframe our perspective, to see that happening as for my highest good, because it's destroyed something, it's eliminated something out of my path that is perhaps in opposition to my soul's growth. And that takes a lot of sort of strength and maturity to reframe our life in that everything is happening for my spiritual evolution. And that starts to align us with this energetic of love and of intuitive faith. And with that, we don't get to see the whole picture, right? Sometimes it's just having that faith to take the next step in that direction that perhaps fear is really holding us back from, but we're kind of being pushed in anyway. And so that next step starts to reveal more and more, but it's a process of faith. So another thing to note, ego is pretty harsh in our mind, in our internal narrative, in our internal dialogue, and intuition is neutral. So the harsh voice sort of strips our trust and doesn't really give us a sort of empowered place to act from. And the neutral voice kind of gives that energy of, well, treat yourself in loving, respectful ways. There's not a lot of judgment, but it's also one that seeks to guide us in a place of more acceptance. And neutral, to have a neutral mind or an even mind is to be able to sort of step back from judging as good or bad and simply observing. Again, it's sort of that trust and that allowing in that flow of love to guide us, that it's going to happen for my highest good. I don't necessarily need to control or dictate for something to play out. Ego protects our mental image of what I need to look like so I'm accepted, and the intuition protects and projects us in the direction of the soul's journey. So again, what's going to help my highest evolution to come back to the truth that I am a soul that's eternal. I am not simply bound by karma. Granted, that is a big part of it, but once I opt into that connection with divinity, with the universe, whoever and however we want to relate to that, then I'm actually on my soul's journey, and I'm sort of above the laws of karma as it might appear. And that's not always necessarily the truth or the fact of the matter, because we still have karma to burn through and play out. But when I opt into serving and connecting in that way, in a spiritual path, my normal sort of material karma starts to wrap up. And all of a sudden, I'm on a completely different trajectory. There's nothing to be injured, right? So my ego protects this identity where I have a reputation, that reputation might be harmed. And instead of speaking in line with truth, maybe I sort of just fudge it so that someone will think better of me. But actually the soul's just interested in the truth. And that's what kind of brings us out of the positive, negative, the calculating. And then last one, the ego jumps around. It's kind of contradicting itself. It's going from this and that. And it's said that it's like a thief that tries to break into your house in any which way. And whatever we get from our intuition is steady, it's consistent. The same words or phrases keep coming up. And so we'll know that if you've ever had like this gut feeling and not gone in line with it and sort of suppressed it because no, we should do this. And then later on, it sort of played out that I knew it, that intuitive voice was in the back of my mind, that's sort of like a case in point, right? We've all kind of experienced that, I think, or at least I have. So being able to really develop that subtlety to hear, and then the faith to trust the intuitive voice, is part of our process of stepping more into the path of the soul versus the path of the ego. So just to sort of give us those guiding forces as we set out on our practice today. And physically in the body, when we work with these pranayama practices that we'll do today, a lot of them are a segmented breath. So what that does is it starts to activate the pituitary gland and the frontal lobe of the brain. And now the frontal lobe is sort of a very stuck place, a hardened character or personality of ours that, again, is sort of rooted in these fear-based tactics. And once we start to work and sort of break that frontal lobe, then there's a release and an opening. So this can be seen as our third eye or the Ajna chakra. And that's what we're sort of starting to break open and create a more resonance with. So that our conditioning, that which is our past, is no longer as prominently controlling us, and we're more able to surrender to the mystery or surrender to the subtlety of that internal voice. So we're not approaching life in a transactional business way. We're trying to extract the most out of it so we can feel secure. But instead, we're surrendering to a creative and subtle force that's in harmony with nature. There's an open conversation. There's a sense of connection that supersedes control. And so, yeah, these practices kind of get us a little high. So you'll feel that like preponderance or a huge influx of energy. And the way I like to structure these classes is that we can drop into the practice and then take a little meditative pause and then kind of exchange feedback, and we can all share our experience, questions you might have, and then we kind of go to the next practice. So generally we have time for about 3 or 4 in-depth practices. A few of these today are going to be about 15-minute long practices. So we can really drop into a deep experience. All right. So we always start with mantra. So let's come to a comfortable seat and just take a second to drop in. Close your eyes. And a really important part of our practice is the alignment of the spine. So allowing your weight to be even in your sit bones. Sometimes that means tipping back a little if we tend to hinge forward as we sit. Sometimes that means coming forward, finding your middle ground. And then from there, just gently taking a deep belly breath, letting your belly expand, inhaling through the nose, the lungs expand, the chest expands and lifts. Hold the breath at the top for a moment, relaxing around that, and exhale out the nose, softening the shoulders, lifting the collarbone, drawing the navel towards the spine. So this is a 3-part yogic breath. Inhale, belly expands, lungs expand, chest expands, crown of the head reaches upwards. Hold at the top. Exhale gently out the nose. Powerful energy through the navel point, drawing back towards the spine. So continue this 3-part breath. You might even bring one hand to your chest, one hand to your belly to feel how the breath expands you on the inhale and empties out on the exhale. And while you breathe here, just begin to notice your head as well. So you want to bring the chin in towards the throat. So the back of your neck is lengthening as if you're pressing the back of your head against a wall behind you. And this starts to align the spine and the brain. So when our intuition is developed, we can sit back and allow things to come, knowing that our full responsibility lies in organizing and clearing the internal space so that we might be more receptive to the spiritual connection of the heart, the flow of love that lives in every cell, in every molecule. So simply starting to visualize this as you're breathing, there's an energy that is developing and brightening. You can see it as a golden light, a white light, any color that feels resonant with you today. It might change from day to day. And that starts to resonate powerfully from the heart center outwards, so that eventually your entire being is radiating. There's this wonderful picture that is depicting the super soul as the personality of Godhead, or this personhood of divinity that is radiating. There's rays of light emanating from the aura, from the energetic electromagnetic field. And it's situated in every being, in the trees, in the grass, in the animals, in the birds, in the heart of you and I. So perhaps that visualization might help to draw your intention inwards to that radiating presence in the heart. And then bring your palms together, and we'll just rub the hands to awaken the energetic channels in the fingers. And press the palms firmly in front of the chest, thumbs to the sternum, activating this pressure point in the heart, in the chest. So we begin these practices with the mantra Ong Namo Gurudev Namo. I bow to the creative consciousness within and in all things. I bow to the teacher, the guru, who has brought light to the dark parts of my perception, of my mind, of my understanding. And the guru is living within, is living in all of our teachers, past, present, and future. So creating a container for our practice to be guided and inspired. So we'll chant 3 times if this mantra is new to you. And you can simply absorb the first round and then hop in for the second and third round. Take a deep breath in. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Namo Gurudev Namo Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Take a deep breath in. Filling up, filling up, filling up all the way at the top. Hold the breath. Spine tall, chin in, chest up. Exhale slowly through the nose. Beautiful, and release. So before we get started, just to sort of move through the body, we're going to do some cat-cows, just to wake up the spine and create a little openness, release. So come onto your hands and knees and stack your wrists and your shoulders and your knees and your hips. And just begin to move the spine. So as you inhale, you lift your tailbone and your head, stretching the chest. As you exhale, you round the spine, tailbone in, chin to the chest, pressing into the hands, and then continue. Inhale up, exhale down. And starting to move rhythmically. So the first few rounds, we're finding a nice release, maybe a slower breath, moving any stagnation out of the spine, and then start to move rhythmically. So it becomes a quicker breath and a quicker movement. Powerful inhale and exhale through the nose, almost like you're sniffing the breath. Relaxing through the neck, letting the head move as much or as little as is supportive for your neck. So what we want to do here with this powerful pulsing is circulate the cerebral spinal fluid through the spine into the brain. So keep going, speed it up a little bit more if you can. Powerful inhale and exhale. Good, and then finishing up here. Inhale, lift the chest, lift the head, hold the breath in cow pose. Stretch the heart forward, the tailbone up. And then exhale, press into cat, tailbone to spine, to chin, navel to spine, hold the breath out. Pause. And then inhale, relax the neutral spine and come back into a child's pose. Hips to the heels, knees wide. Stretch your arms forward and press your palms together so the hands are in prayer, and relax here. Take another deep breath in your child's pose here. Set an intention for your class, for your practice, for this experience. Perhaps in line with our theme of intuition. And then slowly, when you're ready, come back to sit in easy pose. Notice your tendency in easy pose to cross one shin in front of the other, and perhaps try the other way. So you're balancing the pelvis a little bit, giving yourself a new experience in the hips. So we're going to start our practice with 1 minute breath. 1 minute breath is a very powerful practice that takes time to build up. It's a 3-part breath that you can do anytime, anywhere, for any count that is accessible to you. It's a 20-second inhale. So you're expanding from the very base of your spine, of your belly, and breathing very slowly. So there's a refined and subtle relationship that is developed with this practice between your breath and taking that breath in the body, and how much your control is part of that, right? So we're controlling ourselves and our ability to really refine how much that breath expands us. So a 20-second inhale, and you'll hold the breath at the top for 20 seconds. So we want to hold, whenever we hold the breath in any pranayama practice, it should be in a relaxed way. We're not straining or forcing in the throat, in the neck, in the forehead, in the skull. We're not squeezing or sort of pushing. It's an ease, right? The muscles are softened into it, and holding the breath for 20 seconds. And then your exhale is 20 seconds. So breathing 1 breath per minute. On average, we breathe 20 to 25 breaths per minute. If we have really a good sort of balanced nervous system, our health is really solid, if we're not in an intense or stressful situation, then we can start to breathe maybe 10 breaths a minute. Someone who would be extremely mentally sort of solid and balanced, we breathe 7 to 9 breaths a minute. When we slow it down to something like 1 breath a minute, we're really developing this sort of yogic strength, the ability to deeply have control over the reflexes of our system, right? That's sort of the only thing we have control over, basically, that we can use it to our benefit on this path. And it's a really empowering practice for our nervous system, for our health. Our blood starts to cleanse with this kind of practice, and it develops our intuition. So this is a great practice because it helps us become in that neutral mind, or that even-mindedness, where we're receptive and we're able to perceive beyond the senses and to allow for something to unfold. It's not that we're not doing, it's not that we're not active in our lives, but we are surrendered, right? In our actions, we're surrendered. In our desire to control an outcome, we're surrendered to allow something to come to us. So we're not pushing, hustling, overstressing ourselves, over endeavoring. We're situated in a space of deep calm and flow. So ready to go into it here, and do your best. So for some of us, our first round, we might feel or find that we are only able to take 5-second inhales. So fine, work with it, take your time. We're going to be here for a bit of time, so work with your capacity and build it up so that you're not just staying at 1 count, but you're sort of pushing yourself to go into it, to push your boundaries a little bit. So I'll guide us for the first few cycles just to kind of get us into it, and we'll do a 5 to 6 second count. So sitting up tall in your easy pose, draw the chin in, close your eyes. Your thumb and pointer fingers can be touching in Gyan Mudra, just to bring the mind into deeper focus. And just take a nice deep inhale here. Open the mouth, exhale it out. And then let's begin. Deep breath in for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale slowly, gently, steadily. 3, 2, 1. Good. Inhale for 6, 5. And hold for 6, 5. And exhale for 6, 5. Inhale. Hold. Relaxed in the body. Exhale. Good. Continue. Count your inhale yourself. Notice how long your inhale is, and then hold for that same amount. Exhale for that same amount. Really lock the breath in as you feel that upper chest. So we want to start from the bottom. We're filling the belly, the stomach, the lungs, into the chest. 3-part breath. Even developing maybe a little more refined so you feel each part of your torso. So this immediately cuts the mental anxiety calculations of the mind, the worries and fears, and begins to open us to the presence of super soul, of spirit, of the voice of the eternal self. As you continue here, stay with a certain count, perhaps for a few rounds, and then start to extend your count. But if you've reached your maximum, then just sit with that max. Maybe it's 10 seconds. Absolutely no rush here. Just relishing every little second as you get to invite the full capacity of your pranic container, the full capacity of the breath to cleanse and heal you. Remember to draw the navel in as you exhale and expand it out as you inhale. Keeping the chin towards the throat. So we're going to gently pulling the neck back in line with the spine. Relishing the subtle nature of your being as it interacts with the world, with the breath. a slow pace, giving space and time to dive inwards, uncover that which is deep within you, that deepness about you. Take your last cycle. When you've finished, just take a few moments to stay within, meditate, breathe naturally. You may feel you don't need to breathe as quickly. You might feel slow breath still part of your natural rhythm. And just notice how you feel. So we did 11 minutes there. Get a whole different sense of time with these practices. So if anyone would like to share their experience, you can unmute yourself or write in the chat, or simply stay in this really juicy place and meditate. No need to leave that just yet.
I can't believe that was 11 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it went by quickly.
Yep.
That's pretty wild.
Well, imagine you only do, if you do the full count, 20, 20, 20, that's 11 breaths. It really expands time or contracts it, whatever time is doing there. Exhale is much more difficult than the inhale. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we're exhaling or holding the breath out on the exhaling, that's the stimulation of the parasympathetic nervous system. So we're resetting our functions of the organs and the glands to kind of heal. So sometimes when there's a difficulty there, there's a sort of reprogramming that's happening.
Weird, because I found the opposite. I could exhale for a long time. I found it difficult on the inhale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're all going to have different experiences for sure. Cool. All right, guys, feeling good? Feeling a shift? Yes? So that's just a helpful practice for you If you're in the midst of a stressful commute, you can do that in the car just for 5 seconds. 5-second inhale, hold and exhale. Um, if you have another meditation practice or a sadhana, it's a nice way to open and begin and kind of set the foundation for greater presence. You kind of zone in with that practice. It really extends our sort of our life. You know, if there's any truth to what that sort of by now cliche bit of wisdom or knowledge from the yogic teachings, that we're born with a certain number of breaths in our so-called bank account, and when those breaths are finished, we leave our bodies. Then we're really buying ourselves time. Just one minute, one breath per minute is a real extension of our vitality, of our life force, multiplies our life. And this is really powerful for disease resistance. Again, your blood becomes very alkaline. So the systems of the body can really work at their optimum. Okay, so we're going to work into the stroking breath, so segmented breath and strokes. And this is a powerful practice to, again, sort of wake up the pituitary here specifically. And it really balances and opens the potential for each chakra in our system and balances them. And you really want to work the diaphragm here. So we're working the Sushumna Nadi specifically with this practice, that central channel that runs up the spine and connects all of the different energy centers of the body, and releases whatever trauma or tension or blocked energy is in the diaphragm, where there is often a limitation for our breath, right? If we're not quite expanding, we're used to breathing the reverse, where we draw our belly in on the inhale and exhale and relax it out. That's sort of the reverse of the yogic breath, where if we're unconsciously breathing, that might be a tendency. So we want to expand into the diaphragm, create more space, and this is going to help sort of work that diaphragm for us. And you're going to really, you're using a heavy breath stroke here. And this is going to give us that strength and brightness of the pituitary to really work for you. Okay, so hands are together in prayer. You're going to interlock the fingers and just extend your pointer finger, also known as the Jupiter finger, guru, wisdom, higher self, higher wisdom. And you're going to bring your hands sort of right in front of the heart, just or right below your nose, maybe a little higher, kind of in front of the throat. And your head is in line with the spine, so you're not dropping your head down. Your chin is parallel to the ground and pulled back. And you're looking down the nose at the tips of your fingers. So that's our drishti and our mudra. And the eyes are kind of 1/10 open, so you're squinting in a relaxed manner, looking at the tips of your pointer fingers. And you're going to inhale in 4 powerful strokes through an O-shaped mouth. So 1 second per stroke. And you'll exhale powerfully through the nose. 1 second. Good. Start that breath and continue here. One second per stroke. Really work the diaphragm. Open it up as you inhale. Inhale deeply. Exhale powerfully. Keep the pace going. You might already feel an intense pressure on the frontal lobe. Your brain starting to activate. Eyes are relaxed, looking down. Keep going. Squeeze that diaphragm open. Press it open. Squeeze it with the exhale. Open it with the inhale. Heavy stroke through the mouth. Push it out through the nose. In this age, our intuition is the principle of our identity. Really transferring our energy to that intuition here. Letting the breath and the strokes work for us. Finding steadiness and a balance in this pattern. If it's difficult, stay with it. Commit to this process that's happening for you. It might bring up a lot of emotions or resistance in the mind. Do your best to stay with it. So filling our container in 4 strokes. Notice if there's any tension creeping up into your low back, your shoulders, your lungs, backs of your lungs, your diaphragm. Try to relax into it. Soften. There's a lot happening. Allow the muscles to be receptive to the increased energetic flow, increased oxygen and prana. Four stroke inhale, powerful one stroke exhale. The changes are happening now in the brain, in the body. Stay with it. I'm starting to integrate those changes on a deeper level. Stay with it. Keeping the eyes focused on the pointer fingers in the home stretch here. Keep working the belly, expand, powerful breath. Heavy stroke through the mouth, push it all the way out through the nose. This rhythm establishing a resonance in the four different parts of the brain, main glands of the brain. Balancing the fear response in the brain, deep stillness. Last minutes here, just keep working this, let it work for you. Good, you're almost there in the home stretch here. You can do it. This is your strength applied. Only you can make this transformation happen for yourself. So we can know reality by intuition, not by knowledge. Know by intuition, by resonance of universe, divinity, and the self. Good, last few seconds here. You got it. Perfect the technique. Get back into the 4-stroke, 1 second per stroke. Inhale and exhale. 1 second per 4 strokes. 1 second for that exhale stroke out the nose. Last 10 seconds. Good, and now inhale deep. Hold the breath, stretch the arms out to the sides, palms facing up, making a T square. So your arms are stretching away from you. The spine is stretching up, away from the ground, horizontally and vertically. Hold, hold, hold. Exhale. Inhale deeply. Belly, lungs, chest, extend, stretch open. Hold the breath at the top. Open the arms, open the fingers. Keep the arms stretched out. Make your fingers like steel. Squeeze your entire energy. Squeeze it, bring it into your arms. Exhale. Last time here. Hold and stretch. Squeeze the fingers, squeeze the arms. Stretch it all out, up and out, up and out. Squeeze. This is making this energy work for us. Balance the central spinal column. Integrate this hugely transformative work we just did. And exhale. Relax and meditate here. Drop in. Allow the shoulders to soften. Lower back. And just let this sort of integrate. If you'd like to lay down for a moment or stretch the legs out, reset the hips. Stay in this meditative space, internal space. Notice how you feel. We went really long for that one. It's a pretty sustained practice. And that sustained time really gives us the results. It gives us the transformation in the brain. You're welcome to share your experience if you'd like, if you're ready to look at a screen and your keyboard type, or you might just unmute yourself.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Yeah, it was very cold. Freezing cold. But it was very nice, but very cold.
Yeah, some of these heat us up and some of them cool us down. And there's like a resetting of the nervous system. Anyone experience that as well?
I also experienced that. I felt shivering and I wanted to put a blanket on.
Mm-hmm.
I felt
I had an intense burning. Oh, sorry, Rebecca. I had an intense burning at the backside of my heart, like right almost in between my scapula. It was just on fire.
Kristen seemed to have the discomfort in between muscles under the shoulder blades on the left side behind the heart.
Same here. That's exactly what I was going to say, Carissa.
Wow. We're moving a lot of energy with these, right? There's like an unblocking of stuck energy in some parts of our bodies. And when we're working with the diaphragm like that, right, it corresponds behind us as well.
Yeah, I would say I felt that tension in the back too, but just about 2 minutes before we ended, it went away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that transformation, it kind of kicked in. Interesting.
Would you consider these like sensations, or like if it's like a pain sensation, this like a samskara from the breath work, like unblockages from past energy, or like
yeah, I mean, anything's possible. Sometimes we might be just like really tense holding our arms in a certain way, and that actually is part of it in certain practices where the arms are at a certain angle or degree in order to put pressure on certain glands and create a sort of stimulation that when you release it, it neutralizes and it balances. For this one, you know, that's not so much the case. But if we are unfamiliar or uncomfortable with some of these patterns, we may just tense up in resistance, in like subconscious physical resistance to it. So that's always interesting to note, and to try to bring as much ease into the body as possible when we're doing this. Obviously, if tension crops up by itself because we're stimulating certain energy channels that where there's a blockage and a release, that also could be a case. But sometimes we also kind of like hold and squeeze our bodies out of this subtle fear or resistance. So it's always helpful to just observe our physical experience and bring as much ease into it as possible as we hold and sustain these practices.
What was the significance? I like felt a release when we were holding our hands up, but I guess what was the explanation behind that, or what is that sort of part of this practice?
Yeah, most practices have an end, like a closing little sequence where you hold the breath and you apply pressure in the body. So when either it's just holding the breath, which is sort of to consolidate the effects of that breath practice. And when you bring the arms into it or squeeze the muscles, it goes a little bit of into a deeper layer to integrate that shift, that change in the body and in the breath into the musculature, into the body, into these deeper tissues. So for this one, we're working with extending this spinal column really straight and opening up this central Sushumna channel in both in the horizontal and in the vertical. So we're lifting upwards, but we're also extending it out into sort of a greater flow in the center axis. But so it's a mystery, right? These are like passed down. Sometimes there's a little explanation of why, and that's it. And other times it's just sort of like, well, they're time bound. This is how they've been given. And yeah, that balances that central channel and the spinal column, right? When we hold this out. So that's sort of the explanation on this specific one. And their recipes, they're really specific sort of ingredients to how to do it while you're in it, and then how to end it. So we kind of get the most out of that practice. Yeah, sometimes the eyes want to like close with that one and it becomes heavy. This is a 4-stroke breath for intuition, to build our intuition. That's sort of the name of it. I usually send these out in an email afterwards, so you can all have them for yourself and kind of practice on your own. Okay. So I think we have.
Sorry, one more question. When we practice these on our own, what was the time? How long did we do that for? What would you say is like the right timing for that?
That was a 16-minute practice. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's just given as 16 minutes. Sometimes it's a range. I mean, with anything, with any of these practices, as you build up your competency or your capacity, it's always okay to start slow and start with less. There's usually a sort of range that's given, and sometimes it's just one set time, which when it's just do it for 16 minutes, that leads me to believe, and as we've all experienced these transformations, there's a reason that it's that long, and that we should do our best to really stick with it to get the full transformative effects. Because oftentimes the mind will just want us to give up or not do something, and we have the capacity. It's not that we can't, but it's just that interference of the mind. So yeah, sticking with it, committing is a really big pillar on the path.
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just how crucial is the sitting posture?
It's pretty
To the-
crucial. Yeah.
Okay.
Just in terms of coherence in the body, right? If we're not able to sit upright, or there's a lot of tension in the low back, or there's a slouching, that it would just, the energy won't circulate as much. I mean, you can still do it, I'm sure, of course, but it's not to our interest, our greatest interest, to sit in a way that's not proper, so to speak.
But keeping the spine straight is the most important thing.
Yeah, yes, always. You always want that sort of yogic asana here. And most always a slight neck lock, right? So the chin back, just so we have that coherence of the entire spinal column and in the cervical spine as well, because that actually is what helps the energy transform also the gray matter, and also control an overabundance of energy in the brain, right? So if we have this lock, there's a slight constriction that controls the movement of prana, but also opens a channel up so that it can move. So that it's sort of this balance. So that neck lock, Jalandhar Bandh. And sometimes neck lock is practiced like really aggressively right down, but generally in these more sustained practices, it's simply back where the neck is long.
Do they speak of tongue position at all too, or no?
Yes, but it's not specific to these practices, but there are, for certain of them, definite tongue position. You want to press the tongue behind the teeth for some, or to the roof of the mouth, the tip of the tongue. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay. So we're going to get into one more practice, sustained practice here, that is a two-stroke breath. So we're connecting the subconscious to the intuition. So often our actions and our thoughts don't come from our conscious thoughts or from our thinking, but they come from our being and our sort of internal understanding of the world, which is programmed in the subconscious, not which is unseen, where we took cues for behavior from modeled behavior in our childhood, whether that was familial or societal. And so that sort of is where our potential and also our limitations lie. And this practice seeks to connect that subconscious and our intuition so that we can intuitively understand why I do certain things, and then, if needed, seek to address them and bring that sort of motivation forward into the awareness. And again, we're working with the diaphragm, and this opens that center, the central axis of Sushumna Nadi. And again, working on the pituitary. And whenever we're gazing sort of down and putting this little bit of pressure on the eyes and the ocular nerve, that's kind of twisting or pressurizing the pituitary very gently, but also powerfully. So it's like a subtle adjustment. Okay, so birds just So we're going to have our, again, straight spine if you need to adjust so you have more support under. If you feel your hips getting a little bit tired here, you can place a blanket or a pillow to lift you up tall. And your elbows are right by your sides. And you're going to bring your elbows in line with the shoulders. So there's a vertical line from the elbows to the fingertips and then elbow to the chest. So you want to rest the upper arms against your side ribs. And then your hands are in Gyan Mudra, so thumb and pointer fingers touching, palms facing forward. And this is a real precise little touch here. So really feel that connection and bring this alignment, a little bit of pressure in the back of the body. So our eyes are 1/10 open, kind of looking down at the tip of the nose, looking through this slit in the eyes. So just a little bit of light coming in. And this is called a Trinity breath. So we're slightly puckering the lips and inhaling powerfully in 2 strokes through the mouth. So it's 1 second per stroke, again, breaking the strokes up into time. And then exhaling powerfully in 1 stroke out the nose. Again, 1 second. Continuing this breath here. 2 strokes through the open mouth, puckered lips, and 1 powerful stroke through the nose. Breathe these 2 strokes powerfully in the diaphragm. Open the belly as you inhale. This is a really transformative practice again. So we're going into the brain, into the chemical balance of the brain. Again, you may feel this cooling effect. If you need to, if you ever feel like you're going to pass out, then take a break. Make any adjustments to your seat, or if you need a blanket. Any pranayama should be a steady practice, so we're not overdoing it. So make any adjustments if you need to, and allow the adjustments to happen through commitment as well. So it's up to you to determine what's too much. And stay with it. This is really giving us a deep nerve strength as well. So the strength from these practices comes from a much more subtle place of mental balance, nervous system balance. A little bit of pressure, keeping those elbows into the body and the arms in line with the body. Looking at the tip of the nose, looking down. Letting the diaphragm move as you inhale and exhale. It's a difficult exercise. You're doing great. Keep up. Keep the head lifted, chin in. Perfecting your awareness here, your commitments, your process. Just doing it. Good. Keep going. You're doing great. Drop in deeply. Clear out any clogged energy. Use this to work through and open your capacity for balance physically, mentally, spiritually. Let it work for you. Relaxing the forehead. A few more minutes here. Deeply nourishing tissues in the brain, the body, oxygenating the blood, transforming your metabolism, transforming your ability to transform. Whether that's food we take in, past traumas, positive experience, negative experience, so we can continue our evolution, continue becoming more aware of our selves, not as body and mind, but as pure spirit soul. We're in the home stretch here, just about a minute left. Recommit to the experience, go for it this last minute. Good. Last 5 seconds. Good. Inhale deep. Put your hands together at the center of the chest in prayer, pressing the palms, forearms parallel to the ground. Hold here, hold the breath. Press the hands firmly, all of your strength. You're pressing, drawing this energy here in the center of the chest. Shaking the hands, press so powerfully the hands shake. Exhale, powerfully, breath out, belly in. Inhale, expand. Hold the breath, repeat, pressure in the hands, push. Exhale. Good. Inhale, stretch the arms overhead. Stretch the spine upward. Hold the breath at the top. And exhale and relax. Release the hands down. Relax, eyes closed. Meditate here. Breathe naturally. Notice how you feel. Ability to transform your limiting beliefs, to become aware through intuitive guidance, through expanded awareness of where my triggers are, what makes me react instead of respond. Good work. So we have a little bit of time left. I'd like us to just take a rest here and let everything settle and integrate. So you're welcome to share your experience with this last practice, or simply rest on your back. Maybe take a forward fold, stretch the legs out, hug the knees. Just kind of reset the body here from sitting for such an extended period of time, and then lay on your back when you're ready and take a shavasana, take a nice rest. Anything that came up in this practice, be open and receptive to any instincts or intuitive solutions or guiding thoughts, being receptive to this power you have to surrender and release. Surrendering to this divine, loving force that it might guide us, instruct us, fill us. Just begin to deepen your breath here and move into your body again if you're laying down. Moving your ankles and wrists, circling them out. And take a deep breath in to stretch the arms overhead and draw the knees into the chest and gently rock side to side. Maybe take a few little twists here, dropping the knees to the left and then to the right. And then slowly rocking up. Bringing your palms together and rubbing the hands. Letting the hands press at heart center. And gently bowing to the wisdom of the heart, the voice of the soul, of the self that is eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss, always ready to guide us. Deep bow of gratitude to you all for committing to this practice and uplifting yourself. Namaste, Satnam, Haribol. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to stick around and offer it up and have a little chat session here.